Hi, geometry. So last video we talked about our circle basics and we described the difference between a central angle and an inscribed angle. Today I'm going to talk to you about the difference between arc length and arc measure. So we talked in length about arc measure last video. Now, what would arc length be? So remember, our arc measure, if I have a circle with a central angle 45 degrees, its intercepted arc right here is going to be, its arc measure is going to be that same degree measure, okay? And we have 360 degrees of that around a circle. Now, arc length is going to tell me exactly how long this arc is, okay? So now we're talking about measuring length, so centimeters, inches, feet, okay? So if you were to actually take a tape measure and run it along the side of this pie, so I wanted to measure the length of that crust, I would get an actual measurement there, right? Instead of talking about an angle, a degree. So in order to be able to figure out arc length, I need to be able to, I need to actually know what my radius or diameter is. So in this problem, I've given you that the diameter is 10, let's call it 10 centimeters. Okay, and remember, if you're given the radius, say you were given the radius is 5 centimeters, then we knew that the diameter is 10 centimeters. So we can also say that the radius is 5 centimeters, okay? You can do this knowing either one of those lengths. So you're going to need some way of knowing your arc measure, and you also need to know what the diameter or the radius is, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna determine the circumference, all right? And remember, circumference is the diameter times pi, or 2 times the radius times pi. So my circumference in this case is going to be the diameter, which is 10, times pi, and we're gonna just use 3.14. All right, so if I multiply those two, I'm actually just moving my decimal one place. So I have 31.4 centimeters. So that's telling me that if I were to run a tape measure around this circle, it would be 31.4 centimeters long. All right, so now I'm going to determine my arc measure, which I actually already have. So I know that my central angle is 45 degrees, so my arc measure is also 45 degrees. Now remember, if you, let's say you had, let's use a different color, you had this inscribed angle here instead of the central angle, and that was 22.5 degrees, you needed to double that to get your arc measure. Don't forget about that. Okay, so now I'm going to determine this thing called the arc to circle ratio. And what that is I'm going to simply take my arc measure and divide it by 360 degrees. So what this is saying is, it's saying that this arc is 45 out of 360 degrees. I'm creating a fraction there, a ratio, right? I'm saying that this arc, so actually 45 into 360 goes in 8 times. So this arc is actually 1/8 of this circle. All right, so you don't need to simplify that, okay? It won't always be as nicely simplified like that. You can leave that as is when it comes to determining your arc length. So now I know that this arc is 1/8 of the circle, and now I want to take 1/8 of that circumference. Okay, so I'm basically just cutting the circumference into an eighth. So this is where I'm talking about, you can just still use, let's say, so our arc length. So our arc length now is going to be 45 divided by 360 times 31.4. Okay, and that's the same thing, I'm just taking that 1/8 times 31.4. Get my calculator here. So once I take 1/8 of that 31.4, I have now found the length of that arc in centimeters. So I've got 45 divided by 360 times 31.4. So 3.925. centimeters is my arc length.